Hello, and welcome to this week's Movie Math, where Lionsgate is king of the tiny mountain. Yes, they have two #1 releases in January, a month full of super distractions like the likes we've never seen, and a very low bar movie-wise. But hey, considering what a disastrous 2024 Lionsgate has had, they'll take the win. Is this the AI at work already? They're like, yes, we programmed an excellent January. Hey, two #1s. Although, big picture, and in all seriousness, when is Hollywood going to release a real movie? Well, to be honest, it seems not for 3 frickin' weeks until Valentine's Day, where we have not only Captain America 4, but Paddington in Peru. Which puts, though, Paddington in Peru, we'll see how it does, but it really puts a lot of pressure on Captain America 4 to perform. Not just as the first Marvel movie coming after Deadpool and Wolverine. Did Deadpool and Wolverine shift the course of the entire MCU, or it was just all thanks to Ryan Reynolds, and they're going to end up right back where they were? But also now it has the burden of setting the tone for 2025. Not to say that things can't change, but it's going to be a real bummer for Hollywood if they come out of the gate not only a month late, but so poorly. January is historically not a great month for movies, but usually for the holiday weekend where Wolfman released, they usually have something. They usually have something in January. Megan was a January release. Movies, some movies can come out in January. This is like, what's happening? It's interesting. I saw that old Matt Damon clip of him talking about how the DVD going away in terms of digital has ruined the mid-range movie. And Hollywood, I still think that they're suffering from that, and they just simply don't have enough content. And I guess they're all now in the streaming business, so they feel it's weird because streaming's not doing particularly well either. We're going to talk about all this, but we're in a weird space. But just like within Captain America 4 itself, Sam isn't getting any big assists in the marketplace. There won't be another big movie. To some degree that's good because he'll have the space all to himself, and hopefully, he won't have a Quantum Mania type situation where the movie just drops like a rock. But there's not another big movie entering the marketplace until a little over a month later, also from Disney, and it's Snow White, which is in as just a perilous box office position as Captain America 4. We don't know which way these movies are going to go, hit or flop. They could just both be mediocre. We'll see. I think both will be very reliant on reviews. We'll see. Do you plan to see these two movies? There's really nothing else for you to see, so you're just going to have to stay home otherwise, and some of you will do it. Oddly, even though March is spring break month, which is historic, that's why Snow White's coming out then, which is why that's historically March has been a big month for movies, it's not until April that Warner Brothers steps up. And why 2 movies then in April? Why not put one in frickin' March? But really, the year doesn't actually start in earnest in terms of theatrical movie releases until summer, which is May. So that's 4 months where the multiplexes are going to have a very difficult time attracting customers. So is streaming stepping up for those 4 months? Not really. The only 2 major shows that are dropping before May are on Disney+. Say what you will about Disney, but at least they're releasing content. Daredevil Born Again starts March 4th, and then Andor Season 2 starts April 22nd. But the Daredevil trailer didn't generate a lot of heat, although to be fair, Marvel had been showing it for months at conventions, and it had leaked already. And then Andor Season 1, very celebrated by the core fandom of Star Wars and was highly regarded by critics, and I think it, even nominated for a few awards, but it did not do well in terms of viewership. And Disney Plus is having a tough time overall. Let's take a look at this. A data tracking service called Luminate, who the heck are they? They're working to compete with Nielsen, and their numbers are good enough to get covered in the trades, so we'll talk about them too, especially because they beat Nielsen to the punch when it comes to 2024 overall charts. Nielsen should actually go up this week based on when they release their overall 2023 charts. So Luminate says that Disney Plus, despite having some of the biggest IP in the business, if not the biggest IP, couldn't get a single show into the original top 10 for the year. According to Nielsen last year, Disney Plus was able to get The Mandalorian into the top 10, but not very high up, but at least it was there. In 2024, the most watched Disney Plus show, Illuminate only, people love to talk about Disney. It was the only one that got its own chart. So we don't even know how the DC shows performed. But Percy Jackson was the most watched show on Disney Plus, generating, though, less than half the number that it requires to get onto the overall top 10. So it's not even close to getting onto the overall chart. But how interesting that despite owning Star Wars and Marvel, it is Percy Jackson that topped Disney Plus's yearly chart, showing that they are still very much a family brand, as much as Bob Iger has wanted to make inroads into the teenage and adult male audiences. Although, for some reason, ironically, Disney decided to instead go to war with those audiences. And that, coupled with some quality issues with their shows, not enough episodes, the episodes not being long enough, and then obvious formulas like always a big twist in episode 5, saving the real story for a supposed next season. These have been issues. Percy Jackson is getting a season 2, but why didn't The Acolyte, despite being right behind it at number 2? I think, as we've discussed before, it's likely a combination of being one of the most toxic things that Disney has ever released in terms of online discussion. And oh, by the way, nobody liked it by the time it was done. Even those of us who had originally been championing the show, by the end we were like, yeah, that was pretty bad. Also, it was incredibly expensive to make. In contrast, Agatha was not only very inexpensive to make, but the discussion surrounding the show was largely positive, and most of the toxic channels ignored it. Although still, we haven't gotten an official season 2 announcement, just rumors. But hopefully we should be getting that any day now. I mean, I think that would be really a nice thing for Disney and Marvel. Maybe if Cap 4 underperforms a little bit, they'll be like, Agatha 2. Maybe they're still deciding if they want what they want to call it. Will it be? Is it an Agatha season 2? Kevin Feige said he wanted to start doing multiple seasons rather than starting fresh with every show, which I think is a good idea. But yet, maybe it would be better to call it something with, I don't know, Wanda in the title, because Wanda, of course, remains the most popular. Because, while the show was successful due to its own measuring stick, when you take the actual measuring stick, it has a lot of room for improvement. What's it going to take to get another Disney Plus show into the yearly top 10? Again, they would have to more than double the viewership of their top show. And The Mandalorian's going to the multiplex, by the way. You even have older seasons of The Mandalorian in Disney Plus's top 10 for 2024. And so you're not getting a new season, they're sending that to theaters. Honestly, I think only Daredevil has a shot this year, but it would have to not just be a good show, but an excitingly good show, I think, to break into the top 10. But we'll see. Unfortunately, back when Daredevil aired on Netflix from 2015 to 2018, Netflix wasn't releasing viewership data at that point, so we have no idea how it performed on that much bigger service. Although we do know that it lasted for 3 seasons and supported a whole universe. It was the backbone of an entire universe. So it must have done pretty good. Are you planning to watch Daredevil on Disney Plus? Again, I was surprised by how the trailer, Vincent D'Onofrio was like, it's coming! And everyone was like, oh, that's nice. I was surprised. But again, it might have been because they had been showing it for months on the convention circuit. Back to Daredevil he's kind of a household name. I'm curious to see how the show performs. All right, back to the overall 2024 list put out by Illuminate. Look at Taylor Sheridan go. My goodness, Landman has shockingly good numbers. That is a hit show. Over 3 times the highest Disney Plus show, while female viewers seem to be supercharging a lot of the shows here as well. Like, I tried to watch The Perfect Couple. It was awful. It was so bad, I couldn't watch it. I fast-forwarded to find out who the killer was, and I was like, that's ridiculous. But look how many people watched it. No wonder Disney is trying to interest female viewers in Marvel and Star Wars. I'm starting to understand the business strategy. And they've had a couple of successes, well, a few, largely with Jack Schaefer. Why doesn't she have an ongoing deal at the studio? However, Disney seems unable to be able to figure out how to appeal to men and women at the same time. It can be done. Look at the first Wonder Woman. Although it's not easy, look at the second Wonder Woman. Maybe Disney should be reaching out to mega producers like Taylor Sheridan, Shonda Rhimes, and Ryan Murphy, who can consistently crank out mega hit shows. Although Shonda Rhimes, of course, used to work with Disney on ABC. She was huge for them. But then they cheaped out on her on Disney theme park passes, unbelievably. And she got so upset, she left them for Netflix. I mean, like, how much was that Disney pass, in the scheme of things? But, fascinating. So they had Shonda Rhimes, but then they lost her. But think about it. Taylor Sheridan behind Captain America? That's not only an exciting idea, but once you think of it, it seems like a no-brainer. I mean, wow, I'd be on the phone to him right now. I'd be like, I don't know what Paramount's paying you, but I will double it. Maybe not 1.5. I don't know. Let's start out. Let's see. Okay, let's see what we can get. But what do you think? I think that sounds like an incredible idea. And Taylor Sheridan has been able to even diversify, his content with, a couple of shows like Lioness, etc. All right, and look, the number one show is Netflix's adaptation of that Harlan Coben mystery novel. That's the most watched show of 2024 on streaming. That is amazing to me. Also, the only franchise that was able to break into the top 10, in terms of how we look at this stuff, is Fallout. Further proof that Hollywood is maybe phasing out of its comic book era and entering its video game era. Finally, I would like to also say how happy I am to see Monsters on this list. Not only on the list, but meaningfully on the list. It's in the middle. It's not like it just barely made it. Not just because I think the show I think a very big part is that it highlights important issues like abuse of men and also empathy, the importance of empathy and how far we've come and still how far so many people need to go. Really a beautiful show in that regard. But I also think what's very exciting about this show is the talent involved, from on camera, particularly Mr. Cooper Koch, to just across the board. I think it's an incredibly well put together. I think it's the best that Ryan Murphy has done of this kind since his O.J. Simpson show, in terms of the zeitgeist, pop culture, and historical, in terms of crime. It's just really an incredible piece of content. I love it. I love it. I think it's so good. I would say it's as good as the O.J. show. All right, if Cooper Koch can't turn this into something, he needs new management. All right, let's return to the weekend box office. Why did Mel Gibson make Flight Risk, an extremely inexpensive film, actually shot mostly in Nevada, by the way, so that Mark Wahlberg would not have to commute from his new home in the state where he has moved to pay lower taxes? I don't know if you're aware, but Nevada, in an effort to lure people away from Los Angeles, it's only about a 45 to an hour a minute flight from Los Angeles, they've almost entirely done away with income tax. So a couple of people, like Mark Wahlberg, have actually moved there. And now he likes to almost shoot all of his movies there. If you look at a Mark Wahlberg film, if you look to see where it was filmed at the end, you'll probably see that it was mostly filmed in Nevada. So yes, Wahlberg is in his be comfortable and make money era. Sounds pretty good. Churning out low budget and mostly streaming movies that he can make close to home so he can remain with his family. And he's had some huge hits with this strategy. He gave Apple TV, I think before Wolf's, their biggest movie they'd ever had. And this is a small debut, but he can still say he has the number one movie in the country. And it's exactly the type of movie Wahlberg is making these days. But Mel Gibson, it's laughable when you put this up next to other films that he's directed throughout his career. But here's my theory, and I'll be curious to hear your thoughts as well. These days, Gibson's Hollywood offers are far and few between, if at all, which is probably also why he directed and starred in Get the Gringo in 2012. So I think here was a chance to direct a genuine Hollywood film from an actual studio that was getting a theatrical release, and he'd hoped that maybe it would do well. And it did do well. It's number one. Will this help his career in Hollywood? I think it will allow it to continue as is. But I don't think it'll allow him to remain steady for the moment. I don't think it's going to allow him to recover any lost ground. The movie has very low scores from critics to audiences, and Gibson, he's really said so many egregious things multiple times that it's going to be very hard, if not impossible, for him to ever totally come back from that. It's pretty bad. He also continues to remain a Hollywood outsider, although that seems to be a somewhat popular position to be in these days. 16% of moviegoers who were polled said they went to see this movie specifically because Mel Gibson directed it. And it did the best in the middle of the country with its biggest performing theater in Arizona, which is very conservative. Flight Risk is also, I think, poised to do pretty well on digital and streaming. I saw the movie this weekend myself. I thought that it was... the script was very sloppy, and I thought Michelle Dockery's character in particular made so many stupid mistakes and was such a poorly conceived and portrayed female law enforcement officer that it was frustrating. But I think I wouldn't recommend seeing it in theaters. I don't think it's worth it. But I think that, if you're looking for something to watch on digital or streaming, and your dinner's sitting there getting cold, this is fine. Gibson's best bet by far, I think, is that his Passion of the Christ sequel seems to actually finally be about to be made. He's been talking about it for like a decade, but it looks like it's finally maybe going to come together. Fascinatingly, his star, Jim Caviezel, has equally isolated himself from Hollywood. Now, the first film, Passion of the Christ, was incredibly successful, and deservedly so because it was an incredible movie. I can still remember my emotional movie-going experience, and I'm not a very particularly religious person, but, tears streaming down my face at the persecution of Christ, and then how my audience erupted at the end when he, first was resurrected. I mean, they just teased it, the whole sequel is going to be the resurrection. But, it was an incredible experience that I can still not only remember how I felt, but I can visualize it to this day. I still remember it. I remember even buying the tickets. It was such a big deal. Going to the theater a couple of weeks early when the tickets first went on sale, talking to another woman there who was going to get her tickets. It was very, very interesting. It was a phenomenon for a reason. Now, we'll see. I think the sequel could be a very big movie. Very big movie. And it won't have some of the conspiracy theory, well, we'll see, that something like Sound of Freedom had. So you might get some crossover. You might, I think it'll appeal very much to conservative audiences. But, although a lot of Sound of Freedom's success came from the crowdfund nature of that ad campaign, buy tickets for somebody else. Even if nobody takes the ticket that you bought for others to enjoy, it's still counted towards the movie's box office. But if this can just be the story, the sequel of, with Jesus Christ, I feel like there could still be some crossover because I feel Gibson's such a strong director that audiences, even though they don't want to see Gibson on screen, I think it's a little more palatable to see a movie that he directed. That's the camp that I find myself in. Hacksaw Ridge was very, very good. So that movie could be really big. And what's even more interesting is as of right now, Mel Gibson plans to distribute the film himself. He might bring on a distribution partner just to make things a little bit easier, but no risk. The bigger the risk, the bigger the reward. And I think the movie's so hot that theaters would want it. And he could technically, if he can raise the money, he could distribute it himself. And he could be a very big industry disruptor if he were to do it. So keep an eye on that space. Keep an eye on the Mel Gibson space. He says the movie's coming out in 2026, the sequel. If it actually does, that's going to be really interesting. I'll be curious to hear your thoughts down below. Now, as for the rest of the top 10, it seems that not just silver, but bad word of mouth can kill a werewolf, as Universal's Wolfman fell almost 70% in its second weekend. No wonder they were so eager to talk about Robert Eggers taking on Wolfman in 2020, also in 2026. Expect Universal to rush this film to digital ASAP. It's 17 days for films that are losers, so probably that would be, I think, like next weekend or something. Next Tuesday. If not this Tuesday, actually. We'll see. Is it? No, 17? Yeah, all right. So anyway. All right, but one of them days had a very nice hold in its own second weekend, and Sony will probably wait another week or two before it puts it on digital, especially since it's so quiet in the marketplace right now. But this continues to be a very nice headline for Keke Palmer. And she should keep the success of this film in mind when picking her next project. I think people like her in a light comedy, and if I were her manager or agent, I would say, maybe we find you a rom-com. I know a lot of you want to see her go to a big franchise, but that would be great if she got that offer, and I'd certainly be making those calls. But she has to keep working, and so she has to find another film that can move ahead quickly. It's up to the powers that be if they're going to invite you to join their franchise. But she can find a really good rom-com script or something like that, and move ahead. So how would you advise Keke Palmer to make the most out of this moment that she's having? All the other films are remaining relatively steady, as those who are like, hey, let's go to the theater, scrounge around in the junk drawer that is January, reconsidering films that they had absolutely no interest in watching just a few weeks or days ago. They're like, maybe I will see this in theaters. All right, I wonder how much those subscription programs like AMC A-List are saving the theatrical space right now. I still don't understand how anybody makes any money off of that. All right. Although, it is worth noting that Mufasa has basically caught up to Sonic, domestic, and pretty unbelievably, Disney has actually managed to carry this thing past 600 million worldwide. That's amazing. Again, proving the bottom line, the real Disney magic is in family fare. And really, just no competition at all. Also, I wouldn't call like Mufasa like this big hit, and I don't think it's been redeemed, But again, I think Disney was able to avoid embarrassment. Also, Neon launched Steven Soderbergh and David Coep's new horror film on premium screens, and it did okay, especially considering that audiences don't seem to have cared for it. And finally, The Brutalist just managed to crack the top 10 after knocking at its door for 2 weeks. It was number 11 for the past 2 weeks, finally got to number 10. It kind of went wide this weekend. They said it was going to go wide, but they just got it in a little over 1,000 theaters. That's barely wide. You're really supposed to be in 1,500 to 2,000 theaters to really actually be a wide release. But the per theater average, not big. I think the per theater average does not warrant further expansion unless it wins more awards. And we'll see if it wins any awards now that it's dealing with this AI scandal, which just erupted after the nomination voting had ended, but will very much affect voting for the actual winners, not just at the Oscars, but at SAG and BAFTA. We'll see. Some people are saying the AI scandal isn't that big a deal, but it's just a smear tactic that's being used during what's turning into a very cutthroat Oscar season. But it seems to be an effective smear tactic, even if that's the case. Has the AI scandal changed how you feel about the film and your plans of when and where to see it, in theaters or on digital or streaming, if at all? I really do believe that after Hollywood fought so hard to go against AI, I do feel that, this is a real a pivotal moment in the future of the industry. Is as pivotal, if not more pivotal, than the strikes. If the Brutalist still goes on to win. All right, over on streaming, starting with Nielsen for the week of Christmas. They're so far behind. We've been talking about what a big hit Squid Game Season 2 was. And here comes Nielsen to back it up, where the show exploded onto Nielsen's charts with almost 5 billion minutes. That's incredible. We never see a number like that. And it only dropped in the middle of this chart on the 26th. So that's incredible. Virgin River also did very nice numbers. And this was a week where overall streaming performed very well as people were off for the holiday. And numbers 1 through 8 all have over 1 billion minutes. That's great. Usually it's only top 5, or usually only maybe 2 or 1 and 2 have over 1 billion minutes on this chart. And look, there it is, Landman. Wow, that's such a big hit. I can't believe what a big hit Landman is. I might have to start watching that. That is such a big hit. This is a very healthy overall chart, though, with a lot of win for a number of streaming services here. Not Disney Plus, and not Max, but Prime Video and Paramount Plus and Netflix are all doing very well. Looking at the OG chart, the originals chart for that same week, Beast Games managed to break into the top 10 here, Prime Video's answer to Squid Game. While Nate Bargatze is another stand-up comedian who has managed to break through and chart on Nielsen. And look at that! Speaking of Disney Plus, What If Season 3, thanks to its daily release schedule, just managed to crack the top 10, which means that this week it did better than Skeleton Crew, Dune Prophecy, and Creature Commandos, who are all still nowhere to be found on any of these charts. Dune Prophecy had even just wrapped its season, meaning it couldn't even get a binge bump at the end like Penguin and White Lotus have done. Over on Netflix, Squid Game Season 2 is still doing big numbers, but it dropped by about 50% already. So at this rate, I think it's unlikely that it'll be able to close the 100 million gap and catch up to Squid Game Season 1 on Wednesday in terms of all-time performances for Netflix shows. But it's still number 3 all-time. That's amazing. With shows for this week, sure enough, there's American Primeval at number 1 for its first full week on Netflix, while new release Exo Kitty is right behind it. While other new release, Season 2 of Castlevania Nocturne, just barely managed to make it into the top 10, showing how much animation is struggling after the pandemic. Animation did so well during the pandemic, and I find it fascinating it wasn't able to maintain that post-pandemic. Why do you think that is? And WWE Raw is holding steady. We talked about that. It's not at the top, but this is a weekly show. So it just has to hold steady. And it is, not only remaining in the top 10, but towards the top. But here's another big headline for Netflix over in movies. The return of Cameron Diaz is huge. With 46.8 million views for just the weekend. This movie dropped on midnight Thursday for Friday. Or 3 a.m. actually. Netflix drops things. That's amazing. This is an incredible, incredible hit. And what's more, you can tell it's Cameron Diaz because it also lifted her older film with Tom Cruise, Night and Day, to number 4 on the streaming service. What a comeback for Cameron Diaz, who was looking to return to Hollywood, and it seems audiences are very excited to see her come back. Diaz built an incredible career, and she's being very smart about her return, because this and Shrek 5, which is coming up, are going to not only be big with audiences, but give her very big paydays as well. Ka-ching! Will she stick to Netflix movies? Back in Action, which, by the way, was awful. I still watched it, though. They got me. But Back in Action did tease a sequel. Or she might maybe try and see if she can get a theatrical release. With these numbers, any studio would be thrilled to have her. I'd call her myself. I wouldn't wait for her to call me. I'd be like, Cameron, I saw your numbers on Netflix. Let's talk. Finally, on digital with Apple TV, Sonic has blinked and gone to digital first. But Disney, as we've been discussing, historically has the longest window between theatrical and digital. So Mufasa, still in theaters, Sonic has raced to digital, and it's doing wonderful. It's not only number 1, but the 3-movie collection also charted. Universal has the next 2 movies on this chart, and awards films continues to do well, including The Apprentice, which is back in the top 10 thanks to surprise Oscar noms for its 2 stars, Sebastian Stan and Jeremy Strong. Fabulous performances. I'm really glad that people are checking out this movie. I wouldn't have checked it out if it hadn't been for early awards chatter, and I'm glad that I did. I think it's a very fair and very well-made film. As for this coming week, in theaters on Friday, we've got DreamWorks' Dog Man entering the marketplace, even though Sonic, Mufasa, and Moana 2 are all still doing pretty well. Will Dog Man undercut them finally, or will it enter a very crowded marketplace already? While Warner Brothers releases Companion, a brilliant thriller that is proving, unfortunately, very hard to advertise without giving away all the twists. I've already seen it. They're trying to get word of mouth out there. I loved it. My non-spoiler review is up right now, and I'll put a link to that down below. On digital, Den of Thieves 2 drops Tuesday, racing that to digital. And more awards films are also coming, with Baby Girl also on Tuesday, and Sing Sing available on digital on Friday. Then with streaming movies, here's some more star power. Prime Video gets into the mix with Will Ferrell and Reese Witherspoon's new wedding disaster comedy, which I have to say also looks absolutely awful, but I guarantee you that many people will still watch it this weekend, and I will probably watch it as well, because, it's Will Ferrell and Reese Witherspoon. It's probably going to be just so bad. But there's nothing out. All right. And as for show, it's like streaming is suddenly, ironically, a place where star power still matters to some degree. And as for shows, Disney Plus starts Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man on Wednesday, dropping not just 2 episodes up front, but they're really dropping this thing quickly overall. In fact, they released the release schedule, and they're going to have 10 episodes dropping in just 4 weeks. Mythic Quest also returns on Apple TV on Wednesday, while on Thursday, Netflix has another young hot spy show the week after the Night Agent Season 2, this time with The Recruit. How odd to put them back to back. And that's this week's Movie Math. What have you been watching? What do you plan to watch? And what do you think is finally going to light a fire, entertainment-wise, under 2025? Share those thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.